Hi everyone, Bill Shula here, black belt nurse. I'm gonna try this called Musings from the car, just because sometimes I get inspired, sometimes I get thoughts in my head. It's probably a good time to record it and get it out there. I'll apologize for, I just got done exercising, so my hat is all sweaty, my shirt is sweaty. Oh well, sometimes that's where I have the best inspiration is during exercise. So maybe just I can dig into a little bit more of why I formed this channel, why I named it, why it is Black Belt Nurse. So, of course, I've been a nurse since about 2001, and most of my experience has been in the emergency department, so about 16 years of that. I got burned out multiple times doing that, so switched. I did some clinic nursing for a little bit, specifically on weight loss, and then I kind of needed more stable income, so I went back into the emergency department. And that second round of being in the emergency department, I got more involved in violence prevention because I got frustrated that nothing was being done and there was no education. And yeah, so I was all prepared to send myself to become an instructor in a certain type of violence prevention course, scoping out and pricing. And then my manager came in and said, hey, we're starting a violence prevention program. I've signed you up as an instructor. So I must have communicated to her that something should be done about violence that was happening in our hospital. In the meantime, if you look at the black belt part, when I moved to the state I'm in now, I'm like, hey, I got time. I can do a martial art. I've kind of wanted to try it. So I started Taekwondo as an adult at 25. If you want to feel awkward, try training with 4 and 5-year-olds, especially as a white belt, which is the belt that you start at. And then you progress up the colors as you get closer and get more proficient in your skills until you get to black belt. And then there's different degrees of black belts. So I thought that merging like nursing as well as some of the black belt attitude things or martial arts attitudes like perseverance, integrity, honor, respect, I think those gelled together. So that's why I kind of merged black belt and nursing together. So kind of the best of both worlds. I think it's catchy title, and I think it gels pretty well. So anyway, continuing on here. So started becoming an educator for a violence prevention program for a hospital system that had, I think at the time, 6, added a 7th hospital. So maybe weekly, a couple times a weekly, teaching a course that, as a commercial course, we bring it in, you can customize it for your organization. So that's what we did. And it would be typically an 8-hour day. So that first half is all didactic classroom learning, where we kind of go over, some of like communication skills. We talk about body language, a lot of body language, not so much on like de-escalation, but I think you could assume from what we taught, there's some de-escalation in there of kind of what to say, maybe what not to say, how to look, what not, spacing, things of that nature. And then the second half was all the physical skills, from distance to how to safely approach, how to communicate, how to direct people, all the way to if they were out of control, how to safely control them on the ground. And then we would also do some self-defense. It's weird. Some people don't like the word self-defense, so they change it. But in the real world, it's how do you keep yourself safe from somebody who's trying to hurt you actively. And it doesn't matter how, hair grabs, pinching, biting, all kicking, all this stuff. They're coming at you with some sort of object to hit you with it. So that's what I taught for almost 4 years while working in the emergency department as well. And then I got burnt out for that too. So I switched careers and I went into patient safety. And that entails reviewing harm events that happen in the hospital to patients. And then since we are accredited by the Joint Commission, they have definitions of what they call sentinel events, which are events that shouldn't happen. Some people call them never events, but they're safety events that shouldn't happen. And if they do, then you have to call them a sentinel event and you have to investigate and develop a mitigation plan. So lots of interviewing, lots of chart review, lots of timeline development, talking to people, talking to executives, managers, caregivers, anybody's involved, and taking that event and putting it through the entire system of meetings and presentations that we had developed. So, and some of those involve workplace violence. So when I helped with the violence prevention program for the health system, that at that time we did it via region, we had 8 hospitals. So helping develop their program and kind of bringing it up to speed, first thing to look at was policy. It was like a 1-page policy by HR that was out of date, didn't reference really anything. So needed to look into that and like, what does our state law say? What does federal law say? How do we want to word this? And then, you look in that, if a violent event happens, who does what? What is our proper response? Do we want people to report? What do we want them to report? Do we want them to report only physical violence versus verbal violence? How do you intervene on verbal violence? I don't know. That some people might consider that a waste of time, but then it also is gathering data. So talk about reporting, talk about rules, talk about what we offer. Like, are people going to go through education? Who's going to go through education? What is our education? What does it involve? How broad and wide do we make this policy? So that was one of the first things that we had to do. And I kind of helped tackle that on. Next is like other things we help with is a patient is violent. We need to let other people know. We need to communicate that risk of violence to other caregivers, because the last thing you want is a patient to be violent and then you don't let other people know and they walk into a situation and they get hurt also. That's number one. That goes against everything that's nice and good. That's probably not ethical. That probably goes against your mission and values. That probably might go against your state law. It might go against OSHA regulations. And it's just not the right thing to do. We have no problem alerting other people to risk of a patient is at risk for falling or they're an infection risk. We have no problem putting up the signs, putting the alerts in the electronic medical record. Yet somehow we seem to have a difficulty saying, hey, this patient's been violent. They've either injured somebody or they've gotten close to it. We need to be on the alert for this patient. So I helped develop an algorithm for a process for flagging a patient who is a risk for violence. So what inclusion criteria, we had a couple different levels. Higher number meant a higher level of risk. We started with 4, and after feedback from staff, we brought it down to 3. So what's the difference between a major injury and a minor injury? And we're like, you're right. So we brought it down to 3, had to pass it through the various committees and executives. And then it also helped develop language for signage. Violence is not accepted here, things of that nature. It's very interesting to hear people's different opinions. Some want really strong kind of forward language, and some people, we don't want to make people mad, so maybe we'll back off on that a little bit. And that was kind of our first draft. And it's interesting to see over the years, people didn't like that version. We printed it out, we made it official, it went through committee. People could print it out, put it up on the walls, in the rooms, out in the hallways, out in the lobbies, things of that nature. And now it's the attitude has changed. People want more forward language, more explicit. It's like, we do not tolerate this here. You should not do this and this and this and this. Okay. So it's actually changed. So that was another project. And then, me being patient safety specialist, being a specialist in knowing what the Joint Commission's rules and things are. On the back end, I am also helping develop, how do we respond to these? What is this workplace violence event? Is this meeting the Joint Commission's sentinel event type? Was there enough injury to call it a sentinel event? Interestingly, the Joint Commission changed their definition of what a sexual abuse assault sentinel event was. So I had to go through that, dig deep into that, and really develop a protocol for, let's say it's an alleged staff on patient, or what if it's alleged staff on staff? What if it's alleged patient on patient? I mean, you've got all the different ways that it can happen. there should be an algorithm or a response to each of those because they go down a different pathway. For us, some of it went down quality management, risk management, some of it had to go to HR, and some of it had to come to patient safety. So depending on which style it was. So really digging into the nuance and really solidifying that of how do we handle that type of workplace violence. So that's why I say there's no quick fix. This is going to take time. If you want to be successful with your violence prevention program, it's going to take years of dedicated time, effort, focus. You need the expertise of people. You need to look into the literature. You need to look at what the professional organizations recommend. And some of that might not be appropriate for your organization, but it's going to take time. So I'll probably do an entire episode on the Joint Commission's sentinel event types for workplace violence and sexual abuse assault, because you can get into the details. It can be pretty prescriptive, can tell you how we went about it and how we handled those, but that's probably another video. I'm currently working on a video on zero tolerance. I think it's a great video. I think it's very educational. I think most people think, hey, we have zero tolerance for violence. Well, do you really? Let's dig deep into that one. So I'm working on that video. That should be dropping soon. I did recently start a channel on Spotify, so you can find Black Belt Nurse there on Spotify. My plan is to upload audio only to Spotify because it's much easier. I can get audio only out faster than video, because video takes a while to edit and make look nice, but it's very easy to make things sound fairly decent and then send that out. So that is at least my plan for now, and then YouTube videos will come shortly thereafter. But so just talking about violence prevention, my assessment how it is nowadays is in healthcare, especially in the hospital setting, is it's added to other people's duties as assigned, right? Other duties as assigned. So you've got committee work that you can participate in, give your input for your certain unit, like, hey, we need representation from the emergency department, or like home health, or maybe we need some from the clinic side, and that can participate in the larger committee. What I'm really pushing for is hospitals, healthcare in general, hospitals and even health systems. You need a dedicated person to oversee your violence prevention program. You have no trouble doing it for cardiac, for STEMI, for stroke programs, because you have metrics, you have things you need to meet, you want to stand out of the crowd, you want to really stand out, say, hey, we have the best metrics here, and you're kind of held to those for your regulatory accreditation things. But we don't really have that for violence prevention. Yet, violence hurts everybody, right? It hurts, number one, caregivers, it hurts your patients, it hurts your reputation, especially if it makes the news. So you need a dedicated person to oversee your violence prevention program. And that typically nowadays, it's called the Violence Prevention Program Manager. Now, it's still very new. It's only a couple years old, but I helped create one of those positions, and I think it's been very successful. Violence prevention, there is no quick fix for it. Okay, it's going to take time for you to develop your program and for your program to become successful. Now, that's another question, is how do you know that your violence prevention program is successful? What metrics are you looking at? Are you looking at the number of reported incidents of workplace violence? Maybe, but we know that's unreliable, because the literature is rife with that. We underreport violence in healthcare. So that's not reliable. Ideally, if you want success, you want your reports to go up, right? That means people feel comfortable. They trust the system that if they report it, that you're actually going to pay attention to it, investigate, and maybe do something about it, right? So there's that. Do you want to look at the number of maybe co-grades or responses that you get, security responses, or like if you have a emergency response team, the number of those activations? Maybe you also have a like pre-code that you call, like, hey, this situation might go wrong, or there's the potential for it to go wrong. Let's say I need to give somebody medications and I know they resist their medications. So there's a high risk of something going sideways. Maybe you track that. Maybe you track the number of workers' comp claims for injuries due to workplace violence. Maybe you track the amount of money that the organization pays out for those injuries due to workplace violence. And if you see a decrease, maybe that's an indicator of success. So the measurements of success are not really standardized yet. We don't even know, there's no benchmarking yet. It's like, how do you do it? Do you do it incidents per 100 full-time FTEs or full-time equivalents, or do you do it per the number of people that you have or employees? You can look to OSHA for some of that, maybe modeling your data from that, but we don't even know yet. So I think the opportunity to improve violence prevention in healthcare is still in its infancy. We're still starting. We know it's a problem, right? The federal government is cluing in on this stuff. We know it's a problem, right? We just don't know really how to tackle it, the best way to tackle it yet. It's much more than just having a violence prevention program. It's more complex. It's more nuanced. There's a lot of gray.